Here are some of the key aspects of endpoint security software I want to focus on in this particular lesson. And some of these are going to be some products that I want you to go investigate on your own, but I'll also be doing some demonstrations here as well. We're going to talk about antivirus and anti-malware, and in my demonstration later on, I'll show you an enterprise version of Sophos and Malwarebytes, and we'll go on a little tour of those products. Very important, obviously. Then we'll talk about traditional host-based IPS and HIDS, intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, and why we're moving away from those traditional solutions to the next level, which is EDR, endpoint detection response, and that itself is also evolving and emerging into a new solution using products, for example, from Palo Alto Networks, Cisco, and ForcePoint. Here we see kind of a diagram of a premise-based solution. And the premise-based solution for the small to medium-sized organization, for example, is when you're deploying the enterprise security software throughout all of your end-user systems. Maybe as part of an imaging process, you're going to install something from McAfee or Symantec or Trend Micro or Sophos. It'll be an enterprise version, so you'll have a centralized management of all of those particular endpoints, laptops, and workstations, and sending information from the scanners and the agents and the software on those systems, not just endpoints, but also server systems, to some type of logging service and reporting service in a database. And again, there's many vendors that provide premise-based solutions. For the small to medium-sized business, for example, as we consult our small business owners at Brio, we like to make sure that they have at least early on a premise-based solution that's an inexpensive licensing solution, and that they're pulling updates down from the vendor on a regular basis. Now, this is not a cloud-based solution, even though it's possible that the updates that they're going to get are in the cloud, but they aren't running any software or any other components from a cloud computing environment here. And again, in my demo later on, we'll look at a couple of premise-based solutions. Let's talk about EDR for a second, because this is a very popular solution in enterprise organizations and larger. It's an emerging technology. It's basically tools and solutions that detect, investigate, and actually provide countermeasures or mitigation for indicators of compromise, IOCs, and suspicious activities, specifically on endpoints. It was originally called ETDR, Endpoint Threat Detection and Response. Typically, it was done at that point through HIPS, host-based IPS. Like you could run a Cisco HIPS agent on your endpoints, and it could interact with your Cisco appliances. But this is now an exploding industry. There's a bunch of companies out there, like, for example, Digital Guardian, that can provide this kernel-level technology to give you, deep endpoint visibility into all of your endpoint systems, and not just laptops and workstations and servers, but also your mobile devices as well. Looking at all of your application activity and access, operating system activity, all the interactions with data, and not just creating the data and modifying it, but data duplication, which is a key thing for data loss prevention. Access of users to sensitive memory areas, okay? So there's several companies that provide these EDR systems. Now, in this diagram here, we're going beyond traditional EDR, and that would involve things like user behavioral analytics, and that UBA is running on top of or along with SIEM systems or other advanced systems to do, behavioral analytics. We also call this machine learning, or more accurately, deep learning is really the newer term. And this is a newer term for traditional ANN, which is neural networking that's been around for several decades. What makes this different is when we go beyond EDR, we're dealing with, much larger data sets and more powerful computing, and we're extracting more data from databases, more file information, and we're obviously using the cloud computing like Google Cloud Platform with the Google Engine and Big Data and BigQuery, or Amazon Web Services, or Oracle, or IBM, one of those companies. What we're also seeing is the introduction of association analysis and recommender systems. And these are powerful analytical tools that can really profile and analyze user behavior, not just based on what they're doing on their systems, but where are they browsing to? How are they using social media? Better protecting your company from data leakage and data loss. and just controlling what information about your company is getting out there on the internet. We're also seeing companies introduce what's called deception technologies. And these are actually kind of tokens, also referred to as honey tokens, that are things that are placed on systems that most users, even power users, wouldn't notice that were there. They could be registry entries, they could be dummy files, they could be dummy directories, they could be masqueraded applications, and they're really there as a honey token so that that privileged insider who wants to try to take advantage of vulnerabilities on endpoint systems and on servers will go and actually activate one of those tokens. And then, of course, your monitoring system will notice that. And then you can take your actions, with HR and legal and whatever against that particular insider who's tried to introduce malware or a remote access Trojan or slowly exfiltrate protected data or key information. So we're seeing deception technologies as well, part of our containment and our investigation, along with big data analysis from some of the more popular cloud providers. For example, for our enterprise AAA and enterprise identity management and context-based access control, we could use Cisco ISE, Identity Services Engine. You can see just for an example here, we've got these endpoint policies for a wide variety of endpoints. By the way, not just based on their operating system, like a FreeBSD or a Gen 2 workstation, but also, the actual printers. We have policies for printers and BizHubs and plotters and other static devices. So a comprehensive endpoint security architecture will involve a network device management system where you have asset assessment, change and configuration management. You have an authentication system. For example, we just saw ISE, which might be used with Radius or Active Directory, and then dedicated administration of our devices, and then sending alerts and reports back to our analytics system, which, as I said, could be using UBA, user behavioral analysis, machine learning, and other deep learning tools. This could be either done in the premises, in the private cloud, or we could have a hybrid or a public cloud solution as well. And that brings up the cloud-based solution. Internally, we have scanners and agents that are running on our systems, but then we're going to upload that maybe using tools like NetFlow and other SIEM systems, maybe, for example, reports that are generated from Palo Alto Network's Aperture, and it can be sent up to your security vendor's network. Cisco provides their advanced malware protection, and Barracuda, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, they all have their cloud-based solutions as well, where they can produce vulnerability data findings and file disposition and malware profiling to help better provide data loss prevention and countermeasure zero-day attacks and ransomware. Here we see an antivirus system. This is, in progress, a local Sophos endpoint security control. And like I mentioned, this could be something that's part of an image on those provisioned laptops and workstations. Or you could use a centralized next-generation firewall solution. Or you could use a network-based next-generation firewall antivirus solution. Here we see in a Palo Alto Networks PA500, this is my system, and you can see we can go in and we can create antivirus and anti-spyware and vulnerability protection, file blocking, wildfire analysis, security profiles. Here we see one called Student Antivirus operating on HTTP, SMTP, IMAP, POP3, FTP, and SMB. And again, that can be added to a policy, a security policy. Then we can find certain files being accessed by our clients or sent from one client to another and send them up to a cloud solution. For example, wildfire analysis. This is Palo Alto Network solution, but Cisco also has their advanced malware protection at their SIO. So usually endpoint protection is a combination of software and agents running on the endpoints, as well as some enterprise solutions and next-generation firewall, next-generation IDS and IPS solutions. It is defense in depth. It is layered security, not a one-size-fits-all single solution. Let's go take a look at Sophos and Malwarebytes on one of my corporate organization deployed systems. In this demo, I want to look at endpoint security suites and also recommend to you that when you run these security suites on endpoints, that you run more than one vendor's product. And I'm doing just that. This machine that I'm on is actually a corporate provisioned machine. It's on Active Directory, with a VPN back to the corporate office in Boston, so I actually don't have total configuration abilities on this particular software because this is a provisioned desktop I'm showing you. But Sophos Endpoint Security is an excellent product. Obviously, I can scan my computer on my own if I want to. I can watch the scan in progress. I can see what things are sent to quarantine. Obviously, we're scanning memory right now. That's where it starts. It goes to the registry, scans for rootkits, and I can minimize this and let it run in the background. If I want to pause it or stop it, I can do that as well. If I do find something, I can manage the quarantined items here, choose them, deselect, clear, or perform actions. I can view my antivirus and host-based IPS log. So that's one thing about a security suite. The word suite means it's more than one feature, okay? So this is a full-blown suite, anti-spam, anti-spyware, antivirus, and a host-based IPS as well. I've also got a tamper protection area. Nothing to see here. If I want to find out more about tamper protection, we can just go to this little help area here and tells us about tamper protection on this computer, allowing us to prevent unauthorized users and known malware from uninstalling Sophos security software or disabling it through the Sophos Endpoint Security and Control interface. And it reminds you that it's not designed to protect against users who have extensive technical knowledge. In other words, if I tried to get around and go to the registry or try to do some hacks and configure areas that I'm not allowed to configure, based on my corporate install of this, it would show up under the tamper protection log. And they would, of course, see it back in Boston. So again, like I said, you want to run more than one security suite. So my company combines Sophos Endpoint Security with Malwarebytes. So I also have Malwarebytes Enterprise version where I can perform, and it's already set up to perform a scan. So I have both of these products scanning my system at different times. But I can manually perform a quick scan, a full scan, or a quick flash scan to analyze memory and auto-run objects. This is a licensed version, so I can do everything. You want to make sure that any products you're using are updated on a regular basis from the cloud. And I can check for updates, but I know I would automatically have the latest database version. So I don't have to worry about that. Here's my quarantine area. Nothing here to be found. Now this is the enterprise version, but I'm going to close this down. If I RDP over to my other machine, I'm also running Malwarebytes on this other system. And this is not the enterprise version, okay? This is the Malwarebytes premium version that you would get on your own personal machine. So I wanted you to see both, okay? They're both security suites, but the other one is the Malwarebytes enterprise version that my company puts on this machine. And this is the one that I've got the full licensed version that I went to add to one of my other Windows machines. So you can see it looks different, but the same type of thing. It's a suite. So I've got web protection, exploit protection, malware protection, ransomware protection. Here's a scan detection. Let's go look at the reports. You can see some websites have been blocked. While I was surfing, obviously some malvertisements and other websites were blocked for me. Here's a quarantined item, potential back in April. This is gimpshop.exe. That was not malware, but it did get quarantined, okay? By the way, I also have on this machine, I also have Symantec antivirus as well. So not just on my enterprise deployed machines, but also on my personal computers that I use, I have more than one security suite. All right, endpoint security suites.